comment, I think very different type, but it only came from the title. Something related, mathematics, social, not only human math. Always respect.
I'd like to say more on one. I mean, you mentioned Koblitz, you mentioned the low salaries. Let me mention another thing, which is typically very much in the spirit of what you just said. Many Vietnamese students now, they think they have to go to study abroad. A lot of money is spent to send Vietnamese go to study abroad. And when they come back, if the best one, they often don't come back. And those who come back, nobody cares about them. There is no follow-up. They just, they go to study, in my case, particle physics, they come back with a PhD in particle physics, and they go to teach mathematics, because they need a mathematics teacher in high form. There is a lot of things which need to be done. And so, it seems to me what we have to do is to fight for these things. The one you just mentioned, I think because they are essential, but it's not only the low salaries, there is a lack of rigor, both moral and intellectual, if you want. And there is, in my opinion, the only hope for progress is to give chances to the young generation. There is now a young generation coming up. And, I, for example, studied, I was a student after the war. The generation before me, they could not do research during the war because it was the war. But they were feeling that their mission was to give us a chance. And I spoke with Vietnamese professor of my age, it was the same. There was a generation before us who suffered of history, but they considered their mission was to give us a chance. There is not enough of that in Vietnam now. There is a full generation coming up, but there is a lack of an older generation who really consider that their mission is to give them a chance. And this we have to fight for.
But yes, I understand what you're saying. I think that's an important part. But I think a part of the problem is to create much better conditions for Vietnamese to come back to Vietnam. And this has been a problem in other countries too. And in some other countries, such as India and China, they've made a lot of progress in recent years in solving that problem. But it took many years. I remember visits to India where it seemed like an unsolvable problem, so difficult, the brain drain. But after some years, they were able to improve conditions and it greatly improved. However, I think there is another part of this, which is on the psychological and philosophical level. I think it is very important for the younger generation to have a feeling of commitment to their cultural traditions. That is, they have to feel some pride in their country and their country's traditions. Now, if they are constantly bombarded with popular culture from the West, and at the same time, they are constantly hearing within Vietnam that people are saying that our country's totally corrupt, our country's totally backward, everything's wrong here. If they're constantly hearing this, reading Toi Che or the blogs or something, if that's what they're hearing, a very one-sided picture, if they hear nothing good has happened here in 25 years in education, or if they hear that, that we're the most corrupt country in the world, they hear these exaggerated, ridiculously exaggerated statements. And they hear that, and then they see the West. They don't know the true West. The West that they see is the West that comes through the popular culture. Given that type of psychological conditioning, it's no surprise that they don't want to come back. If they are ignorant, as you say, they are ignorant of the history of their own country to some extent. They know some things, but they don't know it in a deep sense. And if they have that sort of attitude, they won't want to come back. So I think there's a responsibility not only to create material conditions for them that are better, but also to give young people a cultural orientation where they can understand what's important. That pride and satisfaction and happiness in life does not come from owning the latest MP3 or flat screen TV. Those are values imported from the United States. That this is what they should know about. And that is an important battle, which I think the intellectuals of Vietnam have a responsibility to wage that battle for the hearts of the younger generation.
Yes, but you see, you are telling them one should praise dignity, and you are absolutely right, I think. But you see, the problem is that the young people today in Vietnam, like in many other countries in the world, what do they go to study marketing or stupid things like that, which, you know, Vietnam doesn't need marketing. And Vietnam needs people who are competent in many domains. But that's what they go to study. Why? Because their salary is 3 times what, you know, immediately when they come out having studied marketing or some accounting, they call that economics, but it's accounting. And so they don't even come to science.
That's a problem throughout the world. I mean, not just in Vietnam. I think every country in the world has that.
I know, but you know, but I always hear that. You know, when I would like to see Vietnam progress. When I see something bad in Vietnam, I very often hear, oh, you know, it's also like that in the West. I know, but that doesn't help. See my point?
Yeah, you're right.
Any other? I would like to add a small comment that I think why people don't like the politicians and also don't like to invest to put money for science, and also the society mistrusts the science, in particular math, because they also misuse statistics to against math and science. They always say, yeah, okay, we need to support science and math. If science and math can be applied, and what they count, they talk about the use of math or science. They only count what is the application. And they never talk about the positives, what math can bring, whatever the rigorous thinking, or they say that if you have a PhD student, so the government pays 6 million per year, and for 3 years, 18 million. And then they educated, if you supervise one PhD, then you bring the society only 20 million. 20 million, no. They would thought that if you got PhD in America, then you should pay $100,000. So there is all kind of misuse of statistics. But that is very difficult to do.
But I think the life of a mathematician is usually a very satisfying life. And it should be possible to convey that to young people. I remember a meeting we had at the Math Institute here a few years ago where the Koblitz Fund has a project with the Vietnam Women's Union to support visit. Once every 2 years, they bring about 15 young women, university students from different parts of Vietnam to visit Hanoi and visit the scientific research centers. And I remember once the group came to the Math Institute and listened as Professor Huang Thuy talked to them a little bit about, and told them that they should choose careers in their life which they love, which their heart is in, which they really enjoy, and not necessarily a career that other people tell them they should want because there's more money. And I think that for those young women, that was the first time they had ever heard a prominent scientist speak from the heart to them. And telling them something they probably never heard before, they probably never thought of before. So I think that when young people are immersed in a world surrounded by Western culture or by people who are telling them they should care only about money, they have to be exposed to other sources of inspiration. They have to see people in the intellectual world, in the scientific and mathematical world, who are living very satisfying lives, very fulfilling lives, contributing to human knowledge. It's much more satisfying for a person, for many people anyway, than having material luxuries. Of course, you need to have a salary that you can live on. Everybody knows that it's necessary to have conditions so that scientists can live without having to work at 2 jobs or without having to sacrifice things for their family. But beyond that, I think that people who work as scientists and mathematicians are in a good position to communicate to the younger generation what the satisfactions there are of discovering new knowledge, of contributing to the cultural traditions of your country. And those satisfactions are much, much greater than the satisfactions of getting more money to buy a new TV. And I think this has to be conveyed to the younger generation. So I think the battle is not just a material battle, it's a battle for values, for what values someone wants to live for. And I would like to see, I think very often scientists live in a different world from most people. And there's not much opportunity for young people to really see what it's like to be a scientist and really understand why a scientist loves his or her work. And if you can convey that to young people, I think you'll find more young people going into the sciences.
So, okay, we thank Professor Koblitz again, and if you have some more to discuss, we can talk after the.
Thank you.
Thank you.